A sorcerer. Chapter 6, the prophet Daniel and a severe test he had in his old age. What a godly example this man was in Babylon itself, where he was surrounded by idolaters, sorcerers, astrologers, and people who consulted the horoscope. In the Bible, Babylon has always been a symbol of wickedness. The prophet Daniel lived in the real Babylon. The same man maintained a godly, holy, and faithful walk before God, even in such adverse circumstances. How did he do that? Prayer is part of the answer. In Daniel chapter 6, Daniel worked with two other administrators, and together with those three, they were over 120 satraps. Because Daniel was so exceptional, the king wanted to put him in charge over the whole kingdom. Apparently, his co-workers found out about this, and they wanted to discredit and even kill Daniel. This proves that jealousy and envy are capable of murder. Other scriptures prove the same. Because Daniel was so faithful with his job responsibilities, his wicked co-workers could find no way to condemn him. So they devised an evil plan to snare and kill Daniel. Knowing Daniel was so consistently faithful in prayer, their evil plan was to have the king put in the law anyone who would pray to anyone except the king himself for the next 30 days would be thrown into the lion's den. The king signed that in the law. When Daniel found out about it, we read this in Daniel chapter 6, verses 10 and 11. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room with the windows open toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. Please understand this. Daniel risked his life to be faithful to pray to God as he had been doing. He would rather risk death than to stop praying for just 30 days. To me, this speaks volumes about his awareness of the vital importance of prayer to God for help in the extremely wicked society he lived in. Daniel was serious about maintaining faithfulness to God, as we all better be. He clung tenaciously to God through rough times. He refused to commit idolatry by praying to anyone other than God. He would rather die than do that. He feared God more than the lion's den and death itself. We also learned that Daniel prayed 3 times a day and gave thanks to God after his prayers. Daniel's prayer was simple. He asked God for help. I found in my own life at times praying like that was the very best. Daniel was in a dangerous situation, and he knew he desperately needed help, and also knew God alone could give him the help he needed. His enemies found him praying to God, which means he broke the law and would therefore be thrown into the lion's den. Certainly, those wicked people must have been happy to find this evidence to use against their godly competition. It also seemed that Daniel must have been verbally praying out loud because his wicked enemies heard him praying. They took that incriminating evidence to the king. With these words they said, Daniel, who was one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day. Daniel chapter 6, verse 13. So Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. At the first light of dawn the next day, the king himself came to the lion's den and said, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel chapter 6, verse 20. And Daniel, the servant of God, answered back in Daniel 6, 21 and 22. O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king. And verse 23 says this. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. The evil plan of those who wanted Daniel dead backfired on those men. The king had them, their wives and children, all thrown into the lion's den. The king also issued another decree which read, I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. Daniel 6, verse 26. Among other truths from this chapter, remember these. 1. As long as we are alive, we will continue to go through tests that will reveal our faithfulness to God. Some of these tests will be of life or death consequences, as it was with Daniel. It is believed by some that Daniel was around 80 years of age when he went through this test. Remember also, he had been faithful to God for decades, yet still was tested in this most severe way. 2. Daniel stood alone, without any other human by his side, when tested in this fashion. If you are going to remain faithful to God, you must learn to stand alone. There is coming a time when you will be tested when you are all alone. 3. God sent a single angel which shut the mouths of all those lions in the den. God often uses angels to perform his miracles. This does not mean, however, we should trust in angels. Trust in God. 4. Daniel was found innocent in God's sight. This is when he was under the law and while living in captivity in Babylon itself. The circumstances were in heavy opposition to him, but with God and prayer, he walked holy and remained faithful. 5. The object of his trust was God himself. He was wise enough not to be deceived into thinking that something or someone else could help him more than the invisible God. 6. Daniel was greatly outnumbered in the natural. He had 122 aggressive and conspiring enemies who worked alongside of him, who wanted him dead. Imagine that. In Daniel chapters 9 and 10, we learn Daniel was called highly esteemed. In Isaiah 66:2, we read this about those that God esteems. This is the one I esteem, who is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. Since Daniel was highly esteemed, he had at least all those noble characteristics. Also, Daniel's humility was shown in his reliance upon God through prayer 3 times a day. God used him mightily while he was in captivity in horrible and far from ideal circumstances. God can do the same for you in your adverse circumstances too. God bless you.